Hey everybody, it is Eric Gross with the Eric Gross Group and eXp Realty, serving both Cincinnati, Ohio and Tampa, Florida. And we are back today to be doing an interview with an agent. And this one I am super stoked for. It is Cameron Smith, who has been name dropped on all 4 of our episodes so far. So this one, I think everybody is going to love. I'm super excited for it. Cam, would you like to give an introduction?
Absolutely, man. Hey, I really wanted to say thanks for inviting me. This is super exciting.
Yeah,
And obviously, like you said, it sounds like I've been on a couple of the other podcasts already so far. So for everyone
yep.
that doesn't know me, my name's Cameron Smith. Been a realtor now for, it seems like my entire life, but going on 20 years now. Running a team down in South Florida, and we've just recently expanded up here to North Carolina. But before that, we've been working with the next gen business consulting, and we've really been growing over doing some really cool things that I think you guys have been talking about in some of the other podcasts. But
Yeah.
you know, one of the things that I always said when people always ask me for my elevator pitch or my elevator pitch is, it's been a life in this business. I've seen the 2008 crash, and now we're going through COVID. Now we're going into this new market, so it's really been a fun journey.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm super excited to do this. And I have a little bit of information about you getting in the business, but not the full story, not all of this. So I'm actually super excited to dig into this, just learn more about how you grew your business. We obviously joined you at EXP going on 3 years ago, helped us a ton with our business. You've always been there to help, but super excited to learn where you've been along this journey, what it's looked like. So do you want to take me through what got you to being a real estate agent? We've had TV shows, we've had just randomness. What was the cause for you to be a real estate agent?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'm kind of, I'll say I'm more a little more on the basic side. It wasn't, selling sunset or anything that drove me to it. But I actually, both my parents were real estate agents
Okay.
during the early 2000s. They were top 100 agents actually in the entire country. So I grew up in this business, so to speak, or this lifestyle. Ever since I was, 9, 10, 11 years old, I've been lucky enough, really, it's luck, but I've been lucky enough and fortunate enough that I was going to like real estate seminars and learning coaching, and man, that stuff is just invaluable, especially as you're growing up. So I've really been, I've been in this thing since I was a little kid.
Awesome. Sweet. And you lived in Washington to start, correct?
Yeah. So originally, I was born and raised in Seattle, Washington.
Okay.
I actually started professional dirt bike racing, and it was amateur, obviously, as a little kid. But you can probably see from the helmets behind me. But that got started at a very young age, and actually, I was homeschooled. So, going through the homeschooling and all of that, racing dirt bikes, we actually moved from Seattle, Washington to Louisiana to Texas and kind of moved around here and there. But we ended up down in Florida.
Sweet. Awesome. Yeah, I know you're a big Seahawks fan. Team won the Super Bowl last year, so that's the one thing I got for you. What age did you get licensed at? Because you said you're going on 20 years, and you look like you're 20, so it's tough to line up. What age did you get licensed?
Yeah. So that's funny because everyone always says, and that's one of the things for my whole career now. I've always looked young, which is really a blessing. But believe it or not, I actually got licensed on my 18th birthday. I had taken all the testing and gotten ready for it before I turned 18, and I went in and did the test on my 18th birthday, and got accepted and passed, and the rest is history.
Was that in Washington that you got licensed first?
Yeah, that was originally in Washington State. Yep,
Okay.
absolutely. So I was, going through all the training with the fam, and at the time I was personally being coached by Mike Ferry, which is a lot of agents regard him as probably one of like
Yep.
the OGs or the godfathers of real estate coaching back in the day, and he was personally working with me there. And my parents' team was in Florida, but I actually was going to go to college at University of Washington. Graduated high school a little bit early doing homeschool, and I was up in Washington, so I got my real estate license up there first before the Florida team kind of grew from there.
Sweet. Did the first couple years, we'll kind of talk about like how business started and stuff. Did you start by working on your parents' team, or were you kind of solo on your own?
Yeah, no. So this is a fun topic, and I always love talking about it because I actually started at the beginning of 2008, which is the year that I turned 18. And I was in Seattle, Washington. My parents' team was down here in Florida, totally disconnected. And I got to kind of go through the entire 2008 market, crash, so to speak, the
Yeah.
collapse of the financial markets, all by myself, completely alone as an 18-year-old. And that was, quite the experience.
Fun time. That sounds very scary.
Yeah.
um, when you were going through that in Washington, did you start out on fire? Were you doing a ton of sales to start out, or was it pretty slow, like kind of trying to build it up? Were you a little, you know, you have a completely different take to it because your parents were licensed, you were already in the real estate coaching, real estate seminar world. Did that help at all, or did you have your normal like lumps and bruises that every typical agent has?
Oh no, I think the fun part of I think every person's career is it kind of ebbs and flows. For me personally, I had the confidence, right? I had all the training, all the coaching,
Yeah,
years of that. But going into 2008, getting licensed right at the beginning of 2008, there, um, I hustled my tail off, and I had a complete failure of a first year. It was 100% a failure. But at the same time, across the board.
yeah.
Pretty much everybody at the brokerage at the time that I was at there, they were having very slow or even completely dead still years as well. 2008 was a tough time.
Yeah, my business coach that I was with for a really long time, like he talked about he was licensed in 2004, 2005, and the first couple years like he was like you could get business doing anything. And then he said when 2008 happened, like literally the amount of agents licensed literally went to half. Most people weren't selling anything. Like he said he did expired listings and had at one point 30 listings and he knew one or two of them were going to sell. That was it. He had 30 active listings, all the paperwork and work to get those listings. And he knew it was a numbers game of like, probably not more than a handful of those will sell at a time. But he said it made everybody closer. And, once it started to kind of get past that craziness, it did start to pick up. So, is that what you saw? So you got licensed in 2008. First year was kind of a failure. You had the confidence, you had the work ethic, just the market conditions, which sometimes happens. Did it get better immediately or did it take some time, like 2009, 2010?
Yeah. So, like you were just saying with your coach there, the truth about 2008 and the fun part of was is it's very similar to what we kind of just went through there with COVID. So the run up to 2008 obviously wasn't licensed yet personally, but I was watching my parents. They were on fire. They were selling a lot. And the market that was very similar. There was a big run up, and there was all this opportunity, and people were buying stuff, left, right, and center. And when 2008 hit, it really did slow everything down to the
Yeah.
point where you had to have 30 listings or 40 listings or that kind of thing, right? And as a new agent that had the ideas but didn't have the experience, didn't have anything. I was just a 18-year-old solo kid that had a lot of confidence. I ran into a lot of walls during that first year, but that was really what has led me to the success that I've had running up through COVID and then obviously since COVID. It's having that experience of knowing what to expect and then also how to how to set up a system or how to really game the system to make sure that everyone's having success, because like you're saying, you can still have a lot of success in those markets.
Yeah.
um, you have to have a little bit more strategy, I think, and a little bit more experience. And in 2008, I didn't have that. Coming out of that, it took me a few years, and it did. A lot of it was just the market had to, slowly correct itself. And one of the big advantages that I had obviously was I was in Seattle, Washington, but after about 18 months in Seattle where I had, maybe two sales, it was really, really not working out very good. I actually
Yeah.
did decide to come back to Florida. I got my license in Florida and I joined on as a buyer's agent on my family's team simply because, hey, it wasn't working like it was planned to work in Seattle. So I had to
Yeah.
I had to make business happen. So that was a part that was, you had to kind of tuck your tails between your legs and suck up the confidence and say, hey, mom and dad, like, I tried.
Yeah.
But at the same time, the amazing part about growing up in the family and kind of the support that I had was, they always told me, Cam, go to Seattle, go to the University of Washington, go to school there, do your thing. But if you ever fail, if it ever happens, you're welcome to come back, right?
Yeah.
So it wasn't like I was, excluded or on the plank, so to speak, getting pushed off the ship. It was like, no, hey,
Yeah.
we're all still a team, but we want you to go try to, do the things that you want to do and have the successes that you want. And, with all the confidence and the coaching and the training, if 2008 wouldn't have happened, I would have been very as you can tell today, I've been super confident that it was still going to go well. It
Yeah.
just happened to be that the market didn't align in 2008. But since then, I'd say 2011 was really when my personal business made a turn, and it allowed me to get into a groove where I could start doing consistent numbers month after month.
Yeah, and I think that there's something to that because you had already done the trainings and seminars and being around it with your family. Like I know our son Daniel, he's been doing this with me since he was I got licensed in 2018, so since he was 3, he's gone on appointments with me and showings and stuff. But I think there's something to it, even for agents getting licensed in this market. It's a really tough market. We've had the lowest transactional volume consistently since 2023, since 1995, and that even more than like the 2008 part of it, like prices were getting slashed and it was awful and devastating, but there was still home selling, there was still volume there, like that actually had increased because so many people had to sell or were selling.
Right.
This market, it's you can't get people to sell or buy. Everybody feels locked in due to rates. So for agents, I don't think they realize there's not, you got to think of it like a pie. And if there's 10 million homes selling in a normal year, which it's not, but let's say there is, and now there's 5 million homes selling, 50% of that pie is gone. You still have the same amount of agents. So you're going to kind of struggle to get that business coming in. So we're trying to preach to all of our agents right now. You have to hold out because the market at some point is going to, it always does. COVID volume was way up there. Now it's gone back down and will level off like it always happens. But I think there's something to when you get licensed and when you get into the business, 1000% determines whether you're going to be successful or not. Or it's going to have a play in it. And I got super
Absolutely.
lucky. Yeah.
I would even say that when you get licensed is a bigger influence in your business than almost anything else,
Yeah.
except maybe mentorship and training. I would say that's probably the number one thing because if you have good mentorship and training that have been through those
You can
ebbs and
make it.
flows, they can like you just said, hey, just keep working through it, keep pushing through it because you have that experience. But it's true. If you can get started and you can get off on a good foot and you have a good foundation and you can start growing from that, as well as not fighting the circumstances, right? You don't want to be fighting things that you have no control over, like the Fed
Yeah.
rate and just the overall general economy. At the same time, though, a lot of people do become realtors because they need to make money. Like, they're doing this as a career, a job, and
Yeah.
they can't allow the market or the economy or whatever it may be to determine that they're going to start, making a change or doing something bigger or better with their lives because we've worked with so many people now and seen them go from just small time, failing at their normal jobs. Like it doesn't matter if it's, being a supervisor at Petco or, being an entrepreneur in something else, but those ebbs and flows go in those jobs too, right? People get laid
Yeah.
off all the time. And then when they do decide to become a professional in real estate, they're not going to wait for the market. So I think that it's a huge decision and it really does affect the people's successes. At the same time, though, you can build success out of that. And like myself, even though I would say my first year I failed because it was, 2008, it taught me something for the next time that came around. Because what I've learned, the biggest thing I've learned really is this all just repeats itself. It goes around and
Yeah.
around and
It's all a
around. You can see it
cycle.
happen. Exactly, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, for sure. And I think if you do have the right mentor, like I was pretty lucky, like where I joined originally, like I had people that had gone through tough things, but I also kind of got lucky because the COVID market happened a couple years after I got licensed and I was working a full-time job. It just so happened to be that I quit my full-time job, COVID happened, and then, I switched brokerages, a couple other things happened that really helped out. And then the market also took off. So there was a lot of kind of luck in play, which I feel like agents won't typically want to admit to the success, but there just was. I try to tell my team, like, you increase your luck by going out and doing stuff every single day. So, the more people you talk to, you're going to increase your luck. Like, it takes a little bit of just randomness. You're going to find that person that's going to buy 10 homes as an investor. But if you're not going out and talking to people, they're not going to come find you. Um, so
That's it.
you,
The
oh, go ahead.
luck saying before you go on farther, because this is the huge. I mean, that was something that I've always truly believed in my heart. Is luck is just when preparation meets opportunity, right? So when you
Yeah.
put all that work in, like you said, you made that decision. You're like, hey, I'm gonna make this happen. I'm gonna do it. And yeah, the opportunity happened around you with COVID. But if you hadn't put yourself in that spot, and you hadn't prepared, you hadn't done all the things that you'd done up to that point, you wouldn't be able to capitalize on the opportunity. And there was a lot of
Yeah.
people. I'm telling you, even during COVID, um, agents weren't having the huge success that it seemed like everybody was having on Facebook or on the internet, where people were, quadrupling their sales this year. A lot of agents didn't do that because they hadn't prepared for it. They weren't ready.
Yeah. Yeah, 1000% there. Because I saw it kind of go both ways. Like my business went from 10 transactions to 50, and then I saw people at my office and around go from 50 to 5, because they just got so caught up in what was going around them. And I was luckily too dumb to know. So I was just like, sweet, like, I'm staying at home. Daniel's at home. I get more time. So it's funny how it pans out. So when you got licensed in Florida, it was like 2011, 2012, or when you moved to Florida, the market?
Hmm. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So, and then you said you joined as a buyer's agent. How did that go? Like, assuming Seattle was kind of, it sounds like you got a little bit of traction towards the end, but now you're moving to a new market, which people don't realize is like extremely difficult. You're restarting your business, your connections, your network, what you know about the market. So, how did that go from Seattle to Florida? And then what did the business look like kind of growing it there?
So what I found when I first moved was that Florida, the overall market and just the clientele there was completely different.
Yeah.
Seattle was city, right? And I worked in King County, which is actually Seattle proper. I was living in Seattle area there in Bellevue,
Okay.
um, and it's very high stress, high anxiety. People are on edge. Um, they're very on edge. I would say that's the best way to put it in Seattle, and especially during 2008 to 2012, they had a lot of economic and social things going on in the city that were creating a lot of stress for people that live there. So you had it was a very big challenge just communicating with people, to the point where you just call them, and if you could get them not to just instantly hang up on you, you were like satisfied with the call. And I know you laugh, but it really was
Yeah.
to that point, especially after 2008. Um, People were very upset, and they were upset at everyone for anything. So coming back to Florida, being a few years
Yeah.
removed from that, one of the best parts of Florida is that it is a second home tourist market, at least where where I kind of made my roots in Southwest Florida, the Naples, Fort Myers area. It's a true second home market. It is what you dream of is paradise. I mean, people move from all over the world, all over the country to come into Southwest Florida because it's, from everywhere I've been, it's one of the nicest places in the world. And getting to come into that market from the Seattle market, where everyone was very on edge and very anxiety ridden and just kind of stressed out, to where everyone was a little bit more wealthy, a little happier. They were coming
Yeah.
down to buy their retirement beautiful second home or fifth home. For a lot of them had 4, 5, 6 homes. Um, so it was good. It was great. It was a great experience. It was great learning, because I learned that not every market, not every area had the same type of market, right? So Seattle's very inner city, very, moving in amongst the city.
Yeah.
Florida, though, on the other hand, was very out of area. Now, coming in as a buyer's agent, it was a lot of fun, um, because you just got a lot of experiences with people from every walk and facet of life. They weren't just your normal person that, in Seattle, about 80% of everyone works at the Boeing plant or works at Microsoft or Amazon. In
Starbucks.
Florida, yeah, in Florida, it's all over the place. So
Yeah.
the experience was great, and it taught me a lot about just the difference of markets. And that's, working with everybody today and talking with all y'all these days. It really shines through because, like we've been talking about in Florida, our market's been a lot different than Ohio or Texas or Virginia or, wherever you might be. And that's okay. I have the experience of knowing that's just because it's the time that, it's in the time frame. It's where they're at in the ebb and flow. And while it all works
Yeah.
together in the market, it's fun seeing it from the third party perspective.
Like, could not agree with that more, because I grew up in Tampa and then moved away to Cincinnati, Ohio. And when I lived in Tampa, it was strictly like retirement market. Wasn't a lot of like business growth. Florida, as at the time, was strictly just a retirement state or a vacation state. And then after COVID, it just completely changed, like the industry that came in. They did a really good job, honestly, with just attracting really high end talent, growing the cities, and then obviously being kind of lax on the COVID laws. A lot of people flocked here from different areas. When I got started in Cincinnati, I went to high school there and stuff, but there's something about like Midwest nice people. Like you don't Cincinnati, like in real estate, I didn't do a ton of lead gen or anything like that. But if somebody was like telling you no, it was usually pretty nice. When I moved back down here, there were so many transplants from like New York, California, Colorado, all these other areas. I hadn't lived here since I'd moved away. And I was like stunned. Like I'm sure it's probably what you experienced, just opposite of like going from Seattle to Cape Coral is going from it'd have been like me going from Cape Coral to Seattle. Like everybody I called at first, like super mean, aggressive, angry. I'm like, there's a lot of South Pole elves here. I don't like it. And it's gotten better. Like we've kind of found it, and we found our base that works, the people we like talking to and stuff like that. But it was a learning lesson because Cincinnati, somebody tells you no, and it's like, oh no, I'm sorry, like it's just not going to work, and you're like, oh okay, sweet, it's okay. Down here, people are like, crash your car, like I hate you, and it's like, ah, okay, all right, have a good day. So, I definitely found that. I totally forgot to mention this. So you moved to Cape Coral in 2011. Cape Coral was the leader of foreclosures in all of the United States per capita in 2008. Obviously, as a buyer's agent, I think that makes like great buying opportunities. Cape Coral is one of the markets in Florida that is typically the first to get hit. It's the hardest to get hit. It's the quickest to rebound. It rebounds the fastest. So by 2011, was it starting to rebound? Had the like, or was it still like foreclosure capital? Nothing was selling. What did that look like?
Yeah, 2011, 2012, we were definitely on an amend, so things were getting
Okay.
better, but we were having at that time a lot of foreclosures still. So
Yeah.
2008, 2009 happened, and one thing you got to remember about the financial collapse of '08 was that the banks and the mortgage industries and the mortgage servicers and all of those people, they hadn't been through this experience yet, right? So they didn't have the departments, they didn't have the people in place, they didn't even
Yeah.
have the infrastructure or the structure to sell a home that they just foreclosed on. And I know that might sound silly, but traditionally banks, they foreclose on a house here, a house here.
Yeah.
It's not, the system really isn't set up to do that because the idea is that people want to be purchasing the homes. They got to live in the homes. If they lose their home, now they're homeless, right? So prior to 2008, you have to keep in mind that these banks and mortgage servicers, they just were not, they were not prepared for how to handle the situation when people got foreclosed on in masses. But not so just that, they didn't even have a plan when they foreclosed. So they were foreclosing on houses,
Yeah.
and I say houses. They were in Cape Coral. That's one of our main markets, right? So Cape Coral is a very special market because it is mainly boating focused. They have more canals in Cape Coral than Venice, Italy. So when it was designed and the development came through to kind of create Cape Coral, they wanted to make it a boating paradise. Well, they did. The challenge with that is you had all of these people that moved down into these expensive homes in Cape Coral, and they only lived in them for 2 months out of the year or a month out of the year. So when the economic collapse of '08 happened, it affected everyone, not only just in real estate, but obviously stocks and everything went away. So you had a lot of people that were directly affected in Cape Coral, and that's why we had more foreclosures then than anyone else in the country. And we're going to see that again, I think, coming up again because we've had the most price decline of any area in the entire country since COVID. So again, the market, we're just seeing it again, and it's happening again.
Yeah.
But yeah, so when we did get through it in 2011, it definitely took some time. The banks had to start processing. They had to be able to service the loan or service their foreclosure, which they didn't even have people hired for. So that really took about 12 months. We were into 2010 before the bank started processing them. And I know that's probably crazy if you're listening to this today, but it took people a year. They literally lived in their homes without paying their mortgages, just lived in them for over a year. And some people in 2 or 3 years, because the banks didn't have any structure to do the process. And by that time, 2011, that's when the banks really started processing the foreclosures. for all the agents that were agents back then, you guys probably all remember BPOs, right? Going out and doing
Yeah.
BPOs for a couple $100. Those are, if you guys don't know, those are broker price opinions. That means they're just like they're like a really
Appraisal.
simple way to do an appraisal, right? Having an
Yeah.
agent do an appraisal instead of an appraiser. But yeah, so once they started doing that 2011 time, stuff started moving, and then it really started taking off because, like I said, I was a buyer's agent on our team. In the early 2000s, the thing that really set us apart is we were doing a ton of YouTube marketing. We were doing a ton of Google marketing. We were the
Sweet.
first team to use the living in. We are living in Southwest Florida, but we were the very first living in brand anywhere in the country with our website and with our YouTube page and all of that. So we were getting a ton of leads through these different YouTube and Google and all of those different avenues. I mean, probably if you guys were back working back then, you remember Overture. Overture was a huge one. But we were doing that. So when 2011 came around and everything started getting processed, then it was really time to turn it on. And that's when, obviously we really started growing the business and we had a lot of buyer activity that were buying those foreclosures. And the crazy part back then was, we would make offers for homes that, today they're selling for 450, 600, 450, 500. Back then they were selling for 80, 82,
Yeah.
right?
Insane.
And if they didn't want to negotiate for $500, we were like, leave them. We'll go find another one. So,
Insane.
but yeah, 2011 it started ramping up just because the mortgage industry was allowing the transaction and the sales to be serviced.
Okay. So, and what did that look like for you? Like, how long were you on your parents' team when you moved down? Like, did you stay on it for a really long time? Was it like a stopgap and then you went solo? Because I know now you're solo, but how long were you on their team for?
So I was on their team until 2015, 2016.
Okay.
And they semi-retired at that time. So what happened was they decided to
Sweet.
semi-retire, and I was able to take over the CRM and the YouTube channels and all of that stuff at that time. But yeah, so it was about 4 years that I was working underneath them. At the
Okay.
same time, though, because we were doing the YouTube and all of that, I had a really kind of a big fingerprint on all of that. Even though Alan, my father, was kind of the face of our YouTube channel at the time, and he was the face of obviously the team. A lot of the technology and stuff I was working on behind the scenes, on the desk, in the desk behind him, probably like Daniel's doing these days,
Yeah. Yeah.
But we started doing that, and then took over in 2016, and that
Okay.
was really a changing point for everything because obviously, like now that you're a team lead, the business changes a lot when you go from just servicing clients to
Yeah.
servicing the team.
1,000,000%. Yeah. Like it's definitely completely, responsibilities are different. The way you think about things are different. The way you account for things are different. What comes in versus what comes out. I don't think I've talked about this in other podcasts. So when we first moved down to Florida, like obviously we didn't have any business because we had just moved down. We didn't have the sphere of influence. We at some point, I'm an idiot, but I sponsored, like I sponsored a Bucks thing. 'Cause I'm a huge Bucks fan. I sponsored a media outlet, great media outlet. Would do it in a heartbeat again. They were awesome, but it was dumb. Like we had just moved somewhere, and I signed up to like a really big sponsorship. We were paying for a ton of leads. We had at one point like we didn't know, so we like finally tracked it. I'm like, there's a really big outflow of money in our account every month, and there's like nothing coming in. So that for us was like, holy crap. So when you talk about the team thing, that's what's completely different for me because when it was just solo, I didn't care. Like I knew if I got to go get business, I'll run open houses, I'll cold call, I'll network, I'll do all these things. When you're running a team, it's like you're trying to drive in as much as you possibly can. And I think that's what most team leads fall into. Like they want their team members to be successful. They want all of that. So then they start going on a spending spree without tracking any of it. It would have been a lot smarter for us to slowly do it. But when you're talking difference in between team and solo, like that's probably the biggest one I saw. And then obviously, having to deal with other people having issues go on is always a fun time.
Yeah, no doubt. And having the team and the business, it's a big challenge. It's a different, the business
Yeah.
changes and you become more of a business manager rather than just a salesperson. But as you know, and I think everybody knows that knows me well, I'm not big into paid leads. I'm not a Zillow fan. I don't subscribe to the Zillow lifestyle. I'm not saying that people that use Zillow leads or run their teams through Zillow, nothing wrong with that at all. It's a great way to grow if that's what you want to do. I'm just personally not subscribed to that not subscribed to that newsletter, so to speak. But what we really focus on is allowing our agents to organically grow their business using
Yeah.
the tools that we use and the tools that work for us that are not paying, like you were saying, out the nose for leads, and actually deleveraging your business. And a lot of the team leads that I've been fortunate enough to coach in Nevada and Salt Lake City and other places around the country. They run 200, 300, 400, 500 million dollar a year teams, you guys. I mean, absolute huge numbers. But when you start talking to them as a consultant for their team and you start really working into their business, you realize that the profitability has really started to disappear for them or completely disappeared for them. And I would say that's probably the number one reason that I've actually been flown out to these different teams and spent 3, 4, 5 days working with the team managers and the team owners, is because they start to see the loss of profitability, or they actually go completely opposite where they have to start laying people off. You have to lay your team manager off or start cutting staff. And that is the biggest challenge I think that all team leads really experience when they start doing what you just said. They just open the checkbook because they believe that is the right foundation for the model, and we've just found that it's not profitable. So why are we going to do something that's not profitable? It's not smart. Just like doing the Bucks advertising, it's fun. There's nothing
It
wrong
was
with it if
awesome.
that's what you want to do. But if you want to be as profitable as possible, there's better ways.
Yeah, I would do it again in a heartbeat, but it was once we look back, we're like, and we had 2 years later, we had one transaction that covered, it was just funny that it worked out that way. It covered everything we paid into it. It actually closed the beginning of this year, where it was like, okay, it was a wash. It just took 2 years. But that's the question we get the most commonly, even from people on our team. That's the question we get the most commonly is like, what lead source would you put money into? What ads would you buy? What leads would you purchase? Should I do Zillow? Should I do Facebook? Should I do Instagram? Should I do? And I have a hard time answering this question because I personally wouldn't put anything into a lead source unless it was like, and even then, unless you were just completely going to a market that you knew literally nobody, I just don't think it's worth it. And I think the reason people want to do it is because they don't know how to work the sphere of influence. They don't know how to work their friends and family. They don't know how to work referrals. They don't know how to work open houses. They don't know how to work cold calling. So they want to buy a lead. Like they think if I put $100 in, I'm going to get 10 closings. I'm going to make, for every $100 I put in, I'm going to make 100 grand. So, but it just doesn't work that way. And Zillow, Realtor, Homes.com, listing referral, like all of these different lead sources I have found are almost all the exact same conversion rate of like 3 to 4%. Zillow, you're just paying a really high dollar amount for that. Realtor.com, you're getting a bunch of trash leads to get to that. Facebook leads, you're getting people click around. So there's always this, hey, I could sell you the secret sauce. If you do X, you're gonna make Y and you're gonna get rich. But the problem with that is everybody would do it. Every team would do it. And what you said is what I see most commonly when I talk to team members. I have a team down here I'm really close with, I talk to all the time. And it's just like the amount of money they're spending compared to what they're making, they're worse off than if they were just selling real estate by themselves. And now they have all this headache and stress and extra responsibility because they want this, and they're great people. So, but they want the success and the numbers to look great. But what they don't realize is they're not running a business. They're strictly just, buying an ego at that point. So it's super tricky.
You want to tell you want to hear a crazy story?
Yeah,
Okay, so
always.
I had the incredible opportunity to consult with one of the largest teams on the West Coast. They have over 400 agents. They do hundreds of millions, if not almost $1 billion a year in transactions, right? One of most successful teams. And what I learned, and this was one of the first times I actually was flown out to the West Coast to meet with them and do all of that, looking at their books, is they lost over $400,000 in
Yeah,
leads
that's
in
a
the
lot.
1 year with that many agents. And at that point, I was completely blown away. I was out of my element, obviously, as a consultant there, going, "Why are you guys spending $500,000 and why are you losing $500,000 a year?" What I learned there was that they're just not very smart, for one, but two, they didn't have a plan to get out of it, and they had built in a
Yeah.
system that they just kept digging a deeper hole. And while it was becoming more successful looking from the outside, when you actually looked at their books, it was the complete opposite. And again, um, for most people, they work for profitability, they work to make money to live. Some people, though, once you get to a certain level and you have 300, 400, 500,000 in the bank, there
Yeah.
becomes alternative motives, right? You want to have some a legacy, or you want to have some
Yeah.
recognition, or you want to be able to be recognized as a hyper successful person, not only in real estate as a salesperson, but as a business person as well. And that really opened up my eyes. And again, it was just a great learning experience for next gen um, to really experience that people can sell 500, 700 million a year and lose money. I never thought that was possible.
Yeah, there's like a big wave of, and you know, fully transparent. Like we're planning on opening a title company here soon, but there's a big wave of agents, team leads that are opening up like or JVing with mortgage companies and title companies because of what you said. Now for us, we're doing it because we can cost control it. We can make it cheaper than the title companies we can work with now. It gives us more ability to make sure that stuff's closing on time. And it gives us a little bit more like, hey, we know this is going to get done. We've just had so many title issues since we moved down to Florida where it's like, this has just got to happen. But there's so many team leads that they will see it as like a loss, and like they'll take a loss on the leads and the sales on there. But if they have an in-house mortgage company and they have an in-house title company, that volume will actually be profitable. So there's a lot of them that have done that. But to me, it's still like you shouldn't be losing money on the sales side. And instead of having the team just go through all these leads, it's probably, messing up on follow up or the cadence or whatever it is, leads are falling through the crack. That to me is where it's like, as an agent, you should want to grow your business organically. Social media, sphere of influence, referrals, friends and family, networking, investors, open houses. Like the list goes on forever. And I just think people get stuck in this thought of like, I'll spend $1,000, I'll make $10,000. Everybody, it's a win-win, but just sadly doesn't work that way.
You got to remember too, man, that like most people are being advertised to.
Yeah,
The most profitable person, the biggest revenue generator in all of the real estate industry is the real estate lead business, right? And
yeah,
because they make so much money, they're able to go out and advertise back to us. And these days,
100%.
it's crazy. There's some Facebook groups that are literally completely astroturf. They're not real at all, but there's tens. I think there's one that has almost
Real
80,000 members in it.
Real estate
Um,
mastermind is the
yeah,
biggest
you
one.
know what it is exactly. And you go in there and they have posts, but the posts are completely fake. The people aren't real. The agents aren't
Yeah,
real. Nothing is real in there because they're trying to direct people to buy their leads because it is such a profitable enterprise for them. And that's why the Next Gen Foundation, our whole system that we do, it's not based around that. We have a whole foundation that people can implement into their businesses, like you said, and you start layering on everything you can until you get to a certain point. And I
yeah,
think that buying leads is it's a profitable endeavor if done right. And you have to make sure that you do it right. You have to make sure that you have the numbers and the checks and the
yeah,
balances and all of that set up in a structure, which is what we've focused and helped people build out if that's the direction that they want to go. Because like I said, everybody is on their own unique path, and the cool part is we can help you become the number one agent, the number one salesperson. Woo, big numbers, but maybe the profitability is not as high as you want. Or we can help you become more of like the Navy SEAL team, where you are only you and maybe an assistant, but the profitability is much higher. But at
yeah,
the same time, if you look at yourself on the Real Trends Top 500, you're not going to be number one. It's not possible with only that amount of time and energy in one person. So, you
yeah,
really have to focus and see where everybody is on their kind of their own journey and what they want to do, and then set up their foundation for us. Because the next gen plan, it was a lot like kind of the business. You thought you had the confidence going one way, and by the time you do it, we're now into it, what, 6 years.
yeah.
I
Yep.
mean, it's incredible the different angles and the funnels, and this is kind of the ideas that have been moved around, and they all work. That's the cool part, Eric. I mean, like
Yeah.
they all work. You just got to work them.
Yep, 100%. And it's definitely like we're all on our own journey. So it's just different the way it works out, and everybody's got their own goals with it, and that's the fun part of real estate. So I like it. You can sell one house. I know agents down here, they sell 5 homes every year. That's like a salary, And once they sell their fifth house, it's vacation, the rest of the year. And then there's other agents that sell 1,000 homes and they're never satisfied, and there's no in between, or then there's the in between.
Yeah.
So going solo, what did that look like? You said your parents like kind of semi-retired, so actually just taking over the team. Like, how did that go? What did that look like? Up to this point in your business, like, what did your production look like? Were you selling a ton? Were you just kind of, on the lower end? Were you kind of middle of the road for the area?
Yeah, so during those years, 2011, 2016, kind of in those middling years, I was able to sell as much as that I wanted to, right? So the
Yeah.
amount of effort that I put in, I would get those results back for. But at the same time, I was also a, younger guy in my early 20s, and I had a nice BMW, and I
Yeah.
liked going, being a younger guy. So I wasn't fully focused on trying to become, do 20, 30, 40, 50 deals a year.
Yeah.
I was on my parents' team. I was kind of lazy, let's say, I'm just being honest. I, kind of living the life,
Yeah.
getting free buyer leads, not having to, so for those years, I was just, let's say, selling, doing great, treading water. But I didn't have that drive to like
Okay.
create something big right now. 2015, 16 kind of came up, and um, my parents were wanting to kind of semi-retire or fully retire and enjoy time with their horses and kind of spend more time, on the ranch rather than doing the grind, which they've been doing now for heck had to be 25 years at that time. So,
Okay.
their idea was, hey Cam, we've built all of this for you, and we want you to take it over, and that way you can go change the world, so to speak, or really grow it. And um, the problem with that was that all that they had, because honestly, in 2000, if you remember back, 2012, they didn't have all this technology and this monthly
Yeah.
pay system, subscriptions, all the websites, all this stuff. It was very simple. We actually had CRMs that were on CDs where you'd have to put in your CD, if you guys remember what CDs were, right?
Yeah.
Put in your
Looked up the
CD
website
into
of
your
the program.
computer.
Yeah. That's
And
funny.
really all we had then was our CRM database, right? And it
Okay.
didn't have any automation in it. So it didn't have emails and text messages. They didn't even do automated text messages back then. So,
Yeah.
I took over the name. I took over our CRM, which had a lot of people in it. That was the big advantage. But the challenge with it is that it was social media leads. So imagine social media leads from 2000, early 2000s. They were about as green as leads could come. They were just absolutely
Yeah.
organic leads. But what they allowed us to do is really leverage that for our listing side of a business. We showed people that we had all these people looking to buy houses, and that set us apart big back then. But to the team takeover, man, it was a lot, because honestly, I got dropped on, kind of got the CRM dropped on me, and it was like, good luck. It's kind of
Yeah.
back to how 2008 happened, where you were all back to doing it all by yourself. And um, that was a great experience again, but having the experience of the run up, the experience of, 5, 6 years of selling homes, being in the trenches, kind of experiencing it all, seeing the problems, and then being given the reins to really take off and grow.
So when I met you, you didn't have the team portion of it, and we'll kind of get into how we met toward like once we get to that point. But so did you run that team for a certain period of time? Did they kind of come back into it? Like where did that like did it just organically kind of because I've heard of so a team lead will retire, somebody will buy their book of business, but the problem is it's great that you have their contact information, but they wanted to work with Fred, and you're not Fred. So when
Yeah.
you call and they're like, you're not Fred, you're like, crap. I took over Fred's business. They're like, lose my number. So is that like, what happened there? I guess.
So that's one of the parts that I never like to discuss in public, right? Because I got this CRM of over 18,000 leads or people,
Yeah.
huge amounts of people. Over the next 10 years, I have sold maybe 3 to 4 deals out of those original
Yeah.
18,000
Yeah.
people. Because they were not set up on a correct system, they didn't have follow up, they didn't have any foundation. They were just literally the green leads that fell in through
Through
YouTube,
social media and
Google, or
stuff. Yeah.
Facebook. They were not properly set up to work, and they ended up just not converting at a very high rate, or not converting at all. And that was a big challenge. Is that I spent about 6 months one year just trying to make these leads work. I had this book of business. I was trying to figure it out, And with 18,000 people, it was a lot. And
Yeah.
that was also the time that a lot of the new tools and techniques and tech kind of started coming into real estate, and they're still doing it today, but they're trying to optimize your database, and that kind of stuff. And from my experience, that doesn't work very well, right? So
No.
what I had to do then was I pivoted. Um, at the time, we had both of my parents prior to me taking over the team were agents. Myself, we had another agent that was our kind of our another buyer's agent, and then we had two assistants that were in-person assistants. So once my parents semi-retired, I took over the team. Kind of did a little bit of shuffling, and then had to make the decision actually to let people go on their own teams, even though they didn't leave they didn't leave and stopped helping us. It was just that we had to pivot to making it profitable again, right? So that's something that I had to do in the 2018 time,
Okay.
as we got rid of the team members that were on the team that just weren't producing at the time. And 2018 was very unique in Southwest Florida because we actually started going into a downward trending market.
Yeah.
So I don't know how it was in the different markets or how it was in Ohio at that time, but 2018, 2019, we
Pretty
actually,
flatlined.
um, we actually, sorry about that, phone's going
You're
off
good.
there. But 2018, 2019, we actually started seeing a pretty steep decline in prices. It was
Oh
not
no.
looking good. It was looking bad actually, and at that time we were having some of the troubles that I think a lot of agents are having right now, where they just went through a prosperous time in 2012 to 2016 was very prosperous. The markets were trending upwards, and in Southwest Florida, 8, 10, 12, 15% a year we were seeing. And then that stopped. And because they had the success prior, when the market started to shift again prior to COVID going crazy, a lot of the agents did just kind of hang it up and also semi-retired at that time. So we had a little bit of a pivot, a little bit of a shakeup, and that taught me a lot about how teams can be built and how teams can be lost, and how teams and personalities and kind of working as a team manager more than just trying to feed people sales, right? And that was a big experience for me during the 2000 right around 2018.
Okay. And then so after that happened, did you just kind of go back solo? It sounds like the team, leads, and like I can attest to that because we had at one point like I think 12,000 Facebook leads, like just over our whole business. And Facebook leads are the worst. When I first got in the business, they were actually solid because in 2018, like a lot of people weren't doing it, surprisingly, and Facebook got really smart, and so they would just have people click the ads, and then the information would get submitted, and you'd get spam and stuff like that, and so it was miserable. So 2018, did you kind of go solo? Did you continue to work the team stuff? It sounds like you kind of let the other team members explore other avenues. So it's more of like a solo operation
There
and you
you
were
go.
just
Yeah.
trying to work those, or were
So
you,
yeah, exactly. In 2018, we had to make some changes just based on
yeah,
the agents and where their situation was as well.
yeah, for
Um,
sure.
and what I did is I had the idea at that time that I could do a hybrid team, which is what I still preach today.
Yeah.
And that's what I started then, was what we call a hybrid team model, which is just having those relationships, having those partnerships built, but not necessarily keeping the agent that you want to partner with underneath you. You want to have them, being just as successful or more successful than you are, really. So that's at that time is what I started then, was really going after the hybrid model. But during 2018, 19, 20, I was in the trenches, man. I was selling the houses, slinging the houses,
Yeah.
right, and doing all that fun stuff, and doing it solo, right, finding what worked best then. And like I said, it was a fun, unique market because we had kind of done the run up of post 2008 crash. The market has corrected, right? It took about 2012, 13 until the prices had come back. And then we had this 4 or 5 years of prosperity where you buy a house, you own it in 5 years, you've done amazing on it. Like you're a genius, right?
Yeah.
And then we started seeing that, a little bit of tribulation and a little bit of unsteadiness in the markets. And that was really when like you said earlier, when you got lucky, that's when I turned on my preparedness or preparation. I went full steam ahead there.
Yeah.
and I decided, hey, I want more than to have a 20 deal a year kind of business here. I can do it. I know how to do it. But we gotta, you gotta do the work, and you gotta implement all of the systems on top of your foundation and have them all going at once.
So what was that? What did that shift look like for you? Because it sounds like most of your stuff was just whatever came through the team stuff or anything like that. What did you do to get to like when you were like, I'm going to do the hybrid team model and I want to close more than 20? What was it that you were going to start doing to get to that?
Yeah, so funny enough, man, I actually walked into my old brokerage, right? And I was like, hey,
Yeah.
I need help. I need help. And the broker said, yeah, I'll get to you on Tuesday. And it was Friday. And I was like, no, I'm here right now. And he's in his office. I can see the guy.
Yeah.
And I wanted to talk to him right then. And he chose not to talk to me that day. So at that point, I decided I need to go find somebody that's willing to share with me the secrets, right? Um, and that's really what I did. So I went on this journey of trying to find agents and team leads and people that were at the level that I wanted to be, and communicate and talk with them, as well as obviously churning up, like I said, I was turning up the preparedness, the preparation, and I was really getting into a lot of very new age, kind of the tech stuff, right? The tech kind of lead gen stuff, some of the things that were not commonly available, stuff that not everybody was doing, because I was starting to kind of expand my business network.
Yeah.
And once I started doing that, I seen that there was a better way, and I actually ended up leaving the past brokerage just because his old mindset was so stuck in the mud. It prevented me from even seeing this. I truly believe this, and gosh, I'd hate for him to come back to me, but I truly believe that he did not want his agents to succeed at the highest level. He wanted them to do it their way, and
Yeah.
their way wasn't working anymore at that time. That was the traditional marketing method. That was a traditional lead sources, and at that time in 2018, 2019, they just simply weren't producing like they were previously.
So that was the jump to EXP, I'm assuming. Was that time period?
That's right. That's right. So that was
Okay.
previously they were 100% office, so you kept 100% of your commission. I think it was like $295 a month, so it was a super cheap office to be there. But I didn't see the cheapness or the discount to actually be worth what they were providing or what they weren't providing, right? So that's when I made the decision to jump over to EXP. Um, and
How did
yeah.
how did you find who spot? Well, okay. So were you always considering EXP, and then how did you pick your sponsor? Because I know who your sponsor is. I'm in your downline, and I've always been curious because your sponsor is like a non-traditional sponsor. So
Yes. So the reason that I actually picked the sponsor that I did, other than the fact that the group that he's in, is he had analytics, and he still has analytics, right? Of
yep, yep, yep,
what
yep.
lead systems are producing at the highest amount. So one of our secret formulas at NextGen, and things that we teach everyone, is you need to know what your conversion rates of the leads are before you invest with them, right?
Yep.
And everyone goes, well,
Yep.
how do you do that? How do you know what the conversion rates of our leads, unless you buy a whole bunch and then work them and see? Well, the sponsor that I decided to go with here was one of the like development managers. He was very high up in a lead management company where they were going through, and you can pay them. You can still pay them today. $1, $2 per lead. Okay, so you're spending your money on the lead plus an additional $2, and you're having them follow up with that lead, right? They're a conversion company. And what this sponsor did is he was the one that was looking at all the data and all the analytics for all of this huge conversion company that was doing hundreds of thousands of leads every month, right? So they had agents from all over the country that would pay this company to convert their leads, set up appointments, all of that. And this gentleman here that I met with through the business partnerships, he was the data guy. He was the analytic guy. So he really gave us an in on what works, what doesn't. Like you said earlier, Realtor.com, Homes.com, Zillow, they're all the same, which they similarly are. But did you know 55 places converts at 12.5%? That's completely bonkers compared to Homes.com, right? So like,
Yeah.
how do I know that? Because we've looked at the data. We've looked at hundreds or not thousands of leads that came from 55 places or came from Homes.com, or they come from these different places, and we looked at the data and seen what they were converting at, and that was one of the biggest reasons I chose who I chose is because I am data. I'm a little bit of a nerd. I
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
data. I like having a reason behind why we're doing things. And when you could pick and choose the lead sources that converted the highest, it was, it's a no-brainer. And that's one of the foundation pillars that we really work on even today.
Were you working with him? Like, is that how you connected with him, or was it just like through a random connection you found him and
I was
decided?
interviewing him actually. So I
Okay,
was interviewing the company originally
that's what I
because they
thought.
are a lead conversion company, and I was interviewing all the companies, and they because I was I guess a little bit more forward with them than just signing up to be part of their be a user or a client so to speak for them. I was
Yeah.
interviewing them, and I ended up interviewing up the chain of command until I met with our sponsor here, and that was that was the reason. That was a big deciding factor, was because the data is so valuable in today's
Huh.
day and age, knowing the conversion rates,
Yeah.
doing all of that. And it's one of the reasons that we use that company, but we also decided to partner with him for sponsorship.
So, were you considering EXP the whole time, or was it just a random conversation, or were you like kind of
No, I
hyped
so
on
actually
EXP?
believe it. That's a great question. So I wasn't actually considering EXP at the time.
Huh.
I was just leaving my brokerage because my broker wouldn't meet with me, and I felt
Yeah.
like he was dampening it. So I wasn't specifically keyed in on EXP. But you have to remember too that a little bit old here. I'm going to kind of outdate myself here, or age myself here. But I joined EXP when there was still only like 6 or 7 thousand people. So
Yeah.
EXP was like, it was almost one of those things. One of the conversations we had when I first joined was, hey, if you introduce yourself and the other agent says, who's EXP? Because back then nobody knew who this little EXP company was, other than a select few of really smart people.
Yeah, we have a really similar story, which I knew originally when I went to my broker at Keller. Great guy, loved him, awesome guy, and I was trying to build a team. We had like a whole on conversation about, well, did you know? Did you read, the one or all of Gary Keller's books? And I'm like, no, I didn't. I didn't read Gary Keller's books. He's like, well, just read Gary Keller's books. He like says it all. Like you got to start with an assistant. You shouldn't hire an assistant until you hit 50 transactions, and you can't hire an assistant until you do that, and then you can't bring on your first buyer's agent until you have 75, transact whatever. It's all spelled out. And I got really irritated because we were sitting there, and I'm like, dude, I'm like, we were making a lot of money. We were doing a ton of sales. We had all these things, and it's like I had no problem spending to be in the business, but I'm like, I'm just like stressed and burnt out, and like constantly just like read the book. Like, and so your broker did the same thing, which was just like, okay, well, have you read the real estate books? They tell you to do X, Y, and Z. And it's really irritating because it's like everybody's different. I didn't care to have a transaction coordinator. Katie was doing a lot of our paperwork at the time and stuff. I was like, I just can't keep showing a million homes to a million people and coaching my son's football and doing this and doing that and like spreading myself out and also doing flips and also doing private money. I just need somebody to lessen that load. So that's what got us to look into it. And it's your broker did the exact same thing. So there's something to that. Like when somebody comes up, like hear them out, listen to it, and then try to come up with some like creative solutions instead of hear them out, pitch the old way everybody's always known. And then if it doesn't work, oh, well, you'll never make it. Peace out.
Yeah.
So,
No, I
um,
think I think everyone's journey is so unique that the
yeah,
old style of doing it is insulting. And I know that's kind of ignorant coming, or maybe a little bit of little ignorance coming from me, but it's true that today's day and age with
yeah,
the technology we have, everything that we have going on. If you're doing it the way of the old Gary Keller books, which I have in my library, downstairs in the library, we
I do
have those.
too. Yeah.
They're wonderful books, but I'm telling you, there's better ways to do it today, and that's what we're focusing on.
Real estate's changed so much, even in the like since I've been licensed, like 2018 to now, so 8 years. Real estate has changed so drastically. It's not even funny. Like I don't think people realize how much it changes all the time in such a short time. Even 2016 or 2018 when I got licensed, if you went back to 2008, obviously major change. But like 2000 to 2016, like if you were an agent in 2000, you wouldn't even know. Like your mind would be blown. Like you don't go and get all the documents signed by hand and like all this other stuff that had become the norm in the business, and now it's completely different. And it's going to change in another 5 years and be unrecognizable. So
Definitely.
I think to get stuck on, well, that's how we've always done it, just blows my mind, because it's like, this is, technology itself is changing so much, but real estate itself is constantly changing with
Yep.
technology. And you have to be willing to change with it, or sadly, you get left in the dust. Um,
What do you
so
think of the market changes with the MLS stuff, man?
I I think probably the way we'll end up going. And so I'd probably be wrong, but like Compass is actually the one like spearheading a lot of this. I think there's going to at some point be like one MLS for the entire country. It kind of makes sense to do it that way. That's always kind of been rumored. And I think it's not going to be required for real estate agents to be a part of NAR anymore. There's a lot of brokerages leaning that way. And then with the buyer broker commissions and all this other stuff, a lot of agents are like, okay, well, I'm paying for a company to help fight for my rights, and then they don't, whether people agree or disagree. So I think like the real estate agent, realtor, the all of those things are going to change so drastically. And I do see like it's already starting to happen. My state MLS is you can list a house in any state to one MLS, and they're licensed, and you don't have to be licensed in that state. So we get a ton of listings here that are in like my state MLS, and the agents in Connecticut. So I think we'll probably go towards that. But who knows? That's like the one thing that I've constantly thought was going to change and has not yet. So
Yeah, man, it's gonna be exciting. I think it's gonna be fun. I love the shakeup because
yeah,
it's gonna be good. I think for the clients and for the sellers and the buyers and the
yeah,
transparency. I think all the times that we get stuck on all, the industry, when the industry gets stuck on things, it's always because the industry is fighting. Do we want to do what's best for the clients, or do we want to do what's best for the
yeah,
brokers and the MLSs and all of that? And I'm always on leaning towards, like I told you, I'm a kind of I don't subscribe to the Zillow pill. So, I'm more on the side of the client wanting to do what's right for them, what's protecting them, disclosing to them.
yeah,
And I think if we stay on that track and we really always are focused and we let that drive the decisions for the MLSs and the boards and all of that, we're going to come out much better. I think, like everyone though, they all want to have their dipped in the honey pot because there's so much money to be made that a
yeah.
lot of these corporations and mega corporations they sometimes aren't going to be in the client's best interest or even the agent's best interest. But I'm excited to see because I think we're going to
Yeah.
end more we're going to end better for the clients, which is what should really happen.
Yeah, and there's so much that's changing technology wise and stuff, and AI and all this other stuff, that it's going to change it. And I think there'll always be like, again, 20 years ago, real estate was so different than it is now because of technology, but agents still have value. The ones that add value to the clients, treat it like a business, educate themselves, are a part of the market, are constantly looking to improve. There's still always going to be somebody there to kind of like quarterback a deal. But there's going to be changes, and you have to be willing to, as things change, you have to be willing to also change. If you try
Yeah,
and
yeah.
get stuck in your way, you'll get stuck behind.
What do you think
So
about the AI stuff, man? You said all that AI.
I don't I don't like it. We've had this conversation. I know you like it and use it for everything. I am solely against it, but I'm also like the person who pre-internet was like the internet's stupid, and then you can't avoid it. So I
Yeah.
know that that's where we're at. I just think it's really, I think like cat's out of the bag. You can't put it back in. It is what it is. But I don't. So okay, I'll give an example. I have had so many clients that are like super intelligent people, like some of the smartest people I've ever met in my life. I've had so many clients that will go, "Hey, like I understand what you're saying, but I typed it into ChatGPT, and this is what ChatGPT said, so you're wrong." And I'm like, miss me with that, because like ChatGPT does not know, and like one, it's not state specific, and two, even if it's state specific, like the accuracy of ChatGPT is like hysterically bad, because it's all it is it consumes a
Yeah.
ton of information, it reads the information, it spits the information back out to you in a human form. If the information it consumes is incorrect, the information it spits out to you is incorrect. And there's already like a bunch of stuff proving that, like all of AI is reading like Reddit boards and all of these other things that are full of misinformation. So it spits out misinformation. So long
I
story
had
short,
a
and
I had a crazy one with that kind of example because we recently sold a home that's in a new development, right? So it's a new the Lennar community. And if you're in real estate right now, I'm sure you know that Lennar is offering some absolutely insane incentives.
Yeah.
Down in South Florida, they're offering 6% commission to the buyer's agent, plus they're offering all the closing costs to be paid. Plus, in some homes they're offering, 30, 40, $50,000 off of the advertised price. So going with the AI, not knowing what it was talking about, I had a very interesting conversation with a client because he said, well, I talked with ChatGPT and it said that the homes were selling around, these are condos, so they were selling around 250. But I had just closed one and I actually knew that the Lennar was offering $40,000 in incentives. So that $250,000 condo, the actual close cost was closing at 210.
Yeah.
And ChatGPT did not know that. And it was actually one of the revelations I had because I put my HUD, the closing document that showed all of those concessions and everything, the buyer concessions and everything that they got. And ChatGPT, the reaction was like, oh, wow, I did not know this. That's what it said. It said, oh, wow, I
Yeah.
did not know this. Now that I know this, here's where the market's going. And it completely changed its tone, not just on this community or not just on the city, but for the
Yeah.
entire region, for the Southwest Florida region. It
Yeah.
completely changed its tone on the entire market structure and where it believed it was going once it realized and it saw the real numbers that things were closing at. But if it just goes off of, what's
What
on
it's
the
being
asking
fed.
price online, it doesn't know.
Yeah, and part of it too is like, I mean, there's a ton of memes about it, but like all you have to do is tell your AI like that's incorrect, and then it immediately is like, oh wait, you're correct. Like it's actually this, and you can just keep doing it in loops, and it'll forever say like, oh actually, and then it just pulls a different
Keeps going, yeah.
source. So I have a feeling like genuinely, I don't know if you've ever seen Idiocracy. It used to be like really funny on Comedy Central. Like that's where we're going, where everybody's just like really dumb and like looks at their device and is like there
Moves
was
through
a
it, yeah.
yeah, there's a funny video the other day where like this dude walks into a grocery store and he's like asking his chat GPT how to talk to the cashier, and the cashier's doing it too, and like they can't communicate to each other and they're like
Right,
using their
right.
chat GPT, and he's like, hey, he said, what should I say? And then he's like, hey, he said, what should I say? And it just like spirals. So
Too funny, yeah.
um so we'll kind of get into how we met because we're hitting that timeline. Like, I think you reached out to me originally in like 2020, 2021. And I know, so like EXP, we have agent attraction, we have other things like you can kind of build, what we liked about it is you can build your brokerage inside a brokerage, you can attract other agents. You can also, like, if you're wanting to do coaching and training and stuff like that, it's a really good platform to bring on agents and coach and do what you want, still be able to get reciprocated for the time and work that you're putting into it, and be able to build something that you're proud of. So you reached out in like 2020, 2021. How did you randomly find me? And then I have like a funny kind of story to it.
Man, I'm gonna be honest, and I hope you don't take this the wrong way,
Honest
but
is
I've
awesome. I'll
talked with
take it.
thousands and tens of thousands
Yeah,
maybe of
sweet.
people. I don't remember exactly how I found you, but I know that you were one of the most successful people I could find in your area. And what
Yeah,
I was doing at the time, because that was one of the years that I was really trying to ramp up my personal sales. I was trying to,
yeah,
I don't think the year we met, but one of the years following was one of our biggest years. And, I was personally trying to ramp up our sales. I was trying to get connected and find people that were referring people to South Florida. And Ohio at that time was a huge market that was referring down to South Florida.
yeah,
Um, and yeah, I think I just reached out to you and I was like, hey man, I'm trying to sell some houses. Like let's
yeah.
work together. But I don't remember exactly how I found you.
Okay, yeah. So I interviewed EXP when you said there was like 6 or 7 thousand agents. I interviewed EXP right after I joined Coldwell because I kind of knew like Coldwell wasn't gonna be my forever place. So I started interviewing around, and I interviewed EXP, and I remember like the stock was at like some astronomically low number for the time. It was like 30 cents or something, and like this guy was trying to sell me on it, and I'm like, one, I thought like the original EXP logo and colors was really ugly, and I was like the orange and blue, and it was a really bad logo. So I was like, that's dumb, like there's nobody over here, so I won't do it. And then when I went to Keller Williams, it was continuing to grow, continue to grow. But I interviewed around, like from the time I started until we joined you, I interviewed around EXP agents for 3 years. And like Katie was just like, yeah, Katie was like, you should just choose. And I was like, no, like, because the whole point of the model is if you pick a really good sponsor, it changes your business, it affects your life, it changes everything. If you pick a really bad sponsor, you're going to leave. Like, that's just the truth of the matter. EXP is a ton of stuff. I'm sure there's people that have bad sponsors that stick, like way more stuff than I could ever imagine. But even when I joined Keller, the whole reason was I had found a coach somebody that said they would coach me once I joined. So EXP, I thought the same thing. I was like, I want to join somebody that's going to help us grow our business. So when you reached out to us, I specifically remember telling Katie, like, I have no clue who this dude is. Like, zero chance I'm joining him. Because I clicked your profile and it said EXP. And then we vacationed down here just randomly. And we were going to go to a Lightning game. And I texted you. I'm like, are you into hockey? And you're like, yeah, actually, like, I love hockey. And I was like, oh, cool. Like, come up to the game. It's a business expense. So then after we met you, I told Katie, I'm like, oh, like, he's cool. Because we had
I
talked a
remember
little
that.
bit
Yeah.
about EXP, but it was just because you randomly reached out. I was just like, I like, I'm not joining. This is super dumb. But it's funny to look back at it now and see where our business is and like what we needed and what we were looking for and the people we were talking to. And it's just funny that you randomly reached out and now we're a part of the tribe. We have you supporting us. We have, our business has grown. We've been able to grow our downline. We've been able to hit all of our goals we wanted to hit. We've been able to achieve everything we've wanted to achieve. The future looks really good. You never know what's going to happen, but it's funny how it all ends up panning out.
Man, I love that. I love that so much. And I remember the
Yeah.
hockey game, the Lightning. I love Tampa Bay Lightning, huge fan. But during that 2016, 17, 18 period,
Yeah.
transitioning over and taking over the team, I really learned that you have to make the ball move, right? You have to be the one to push forward. And it can be little things, just like reaching out to you, man. Just sending you
Yeah.
a message or giving you a call, reaching out. Even though, like you said, when you first read it, you were like, "This will never happen." I'm
Yeah.
so glad that it did, and I'm so glad that I
Same.
reached out because the biggest successes that I've ever had have been on a whim. I'm just going to be,
Yep.
a little bit
Yeah.
honest and transparent. Is
One
um,
thousand percent.
it's those opportunities that you go, well, no, I'm never going to do that, and then all of a sudden you go, well, maybe let me talk to you a little bit more, and then you do it, and you're like, this is the best decision I've ever made, and I feel the same way. I mean, having the sponsor that we have and the whole group that we have.
Yeah.
Going to Nashville with them last year was incredible. I know you were
Great
there.
time. Yeah.
It was so much fun, and being able to see him every year, it completely changed how I believed this business should work. And
Yeah.
now with the group and everything that we're doing, I love being able to put myself in that position and being kind of like I always use the reference of the Chicago Bulls. I don't know if you remember them during the Michael Jordan days, but Phil
Yeah.
Jackson was the man. He had
Yeah.
Rodney, he had everyone. Like, he had the whole team ensemble, and like, that is my dream now. And to do that, you got to go out and get people. You got to go find the best people in their areas
Yeah.
and then reach out to them. And a lot of the time, the truth is, most people that are successful like you were, they're like, no, I don't want to deal with it. I'm not interested. But when they
Yeah.
do, and they just take a minute to listen to you and hear the system and the foundation that we're doing, it's like a no-brainer for them because it all
100%.
makes sense. That's why I did it. That's why you've done it, because it all
Yeah.
makes sense, and it just has to be seen. It has to be looked at. And I totally get it, man. Like I said, I was at the other brokerage for almost 10 years, and
Yeah.
I would never leave. Like, I was a diehard fan. At times, though, like everybody, sometimes you find there's a better team, and you want to be best. At least I did, right? That was my goals.
Yeah.
I wanted to be part of the most successful group, most successful team. I wanted to have all the people to surround me to give me their secrets. And if they're not having success, if they're not already winning, they're not going to be able to share with you what works. And that really made my decision back then, was to do it. And I'm so happy and I'm thrilled, man, that all these years later,
Yeah.
just everything that you guys have accomplished, everything you're growing out, it's because of that one message. And that's one thing. If
100%.
you're watching this podcast, heck, we're almost a little over an hour into this. If you're watching this podcast, whatever you've been holding up on, or whatever you're struggling with, stop the podcast, pause it right now. You're going to resume in here in a little bit, but go do that thing. Knock it out.
Yeah.
Take it up. Eat the elephant, so to speak. And if you do that right away, you're going to find that life gets luckier. You get luckier.
Yeah.
You find things that fall into place, and you're always more prepared. And then the people surrounding you are, like I said, I want to be Phil Jackson, man. I want to make you Michael Jordan. And if I can make you Michael Jordan, then
Yeah.
I've done my job.
I don't know if I'll ever be Michael Jordan of real estate, but I'll take it. Like, our business has grown, everything we've done, so we're super thankful. And that's why you've been mentioned on every podcast before, because so far we've interviewed everybody, and Daniel, you had connected us with, but everybody that's in our group, and everybody feels the same way. So it's all reciprocated. None of it happens without you, which is awesome.
How cool is that, man? How cool
I
is
know.
that?
It's crazy to think. The other thing too, because like I kind of want to, we'll go a little bit into like where you're at now, going to North Carolina, but I know I don't want these to go too long. But so I want to give advice for new agents, and I want to get your advice. And you're going out on a whim. That's like whether new agents or older agents. That is like my one, like just constant piece of advice is like just do it, like take the shot. We had a listing appointment today with an investor who randomly called off a $110,000 condo listing I had not long ago, and he wanted to go see it. It ended up going pending and selling, and I showed him like two more crappy condos. Super nice guy, but like complete shot in the dark. And then just continue following up with him. He wasn't buying anything at the time. He's like, I'm kind of putting a hold on it. So I told Katie, I'm like, worst case, I showed a couple homes. It is what it is. And then he calls me last week. He's like, hey, because we had walked a couple other investment properties. He's like, hey, like I really trust your numbers. You're walking this. You're giving me an accurate scope. We kind of think the exact same. I have a house that like I want you to walk, but I also want you to list it. It's a $50,000 house. And he's like, just because you're upfront about scope of work and comps and you're telling me whether it's a deal or not, he's like, I'd rather just give it to you. So random take a shot. We did showings when I didn't want to. This was probably a couple months ago when we were super busy, but was just like, you know what, like who knows what'll come of it. And then you get an investor. So what is your one like piece of advice for whether a new agent or an agent that's been in the business looking to grow their business?
Yeah, so I love what you were just saying there, kind of the idea of just doing it, right? That's the basics, right? Now,
Yeah.
what I have found, at least me personally, because I have, like everybody, I go up and down. My emotions go up and down. I like having success. I don't like having failure. What I really have found to have the most success with new agents specifically is when you get into the business or when you start doing prospecting, which is what this business is, if you were doing sales, is you need to have the correct mindset of what you're trying to accomplish while prospecting, right?
Yeah.
And this is a super valuable tip, and this is stuff that has literally changed people's careers and their whole identities on real estate. Is when you start prospecting and you're prospecting, let's say, cold leads, non-warm leads, right? Just random leads. You should not be going into that day looking for a yes, or looking for someone to say, yes, I'm looking to buy a house. Yes, I want to go see
Yeah.
homes. Yes, absolutely not. The reason is because the chance of that happening is very slim. So instead, rather than feeling like a failure day after day after day, right? Change up your intent, change up your mindset. And what you're going to do is you're actually going to start counting every single time that someone rejects you. Every time someone says no. You're going to write that down. Even if you see my whiteboard here, you're going to write it a big whiteboard. I hit another one. I hit another one. I hit another one. And you're
Yeah.
going to be excited. You're going to tell your partner at the end of the day that I had 35 people tell me no. And they'll look at you like you're crazy. And then you'll say, but because I did 35, I had 4 people say yes. And you
Yeah.
feel like the winner of the world. So if you're a
Yeah.
new agent, other than obviously you got to get going, get out there. You could literally just call every single person in your cell phone right now. That's something
Yep.
you could do and
Yeah.
get
I
business.
do love that.
But when you do that, don't go into it and expecting the third person that you call is going to go, oh, yes, I got someone that's looking to buy right now. Go into it going, I'm going to go through all 1,800 contacts, or, even if you have 200 contacts, it doesn't matter. You're
Yeah.
going to go through all 200 of those, and you're going to get 195 no's, and that's the success. And if you
Yep.
can get 195 no's, you're going to find 5 yeses. And that is a single-handedly transformed dozens, I would say, of agents that I've worked with that are newer agents that are having that reluctancy, which is the biggest problem that most agents have, is that fear or the reluctancy to get started. But if you're getting started with the intent to fail and you're successful when you get no's and the call doesn't end up with a sale, but you can mark it down on your board as a success, you're able to continue on being consistent. And I don't think we've talked about that, but our workbook that we built, that's really what it was all, that's what it was all about, is keeping the mindset so that
Yeah.
you can keep being consistent, because the trick, like is consistency. If you can do this for 345 days a year, you are going to have a great year. But the
Yeah.
challenge is after 3 or 4 or 5 days, it's like, I didn't get any success. Let me go try something else.
I don't know if you've seen it. There's the guy who sells life insurance and he just cold calls all day and he'll like play some like 2000s hip hop and like people will answer no pause and he'll be like, hello, this is, and then like they're always like, no, screw off. And he's like, all right, cool, hangs up. And then he like goes back to playing the music and screaming. So it makes me think of that. But I mean, that's how people hype themselves up for it. And you have to shift the mindset because you're going to get told no way more in this business than you're going to get told yes. Like it is awful. Like I wish I had like a different, like I, even just like last week, because I'm sure as we do this, like my emotions will even be all over the place with this. But like last week, it was like a kick in the face with everybody I called. Like I'm just like, what in the world is going on? Like everybody I'm calling is like, I'm not buying, or I already bought, or take me off your list, and that's fine. Like it's gonna happen. But like last week, it was like people I'd been following up with for years on years, and like had a relationship, and they're like, actually, like yeah, we already bought. And like, what are you doing? So, but then this week, it's not like I just curled up in a ball and cried it out. It's just like, okay, well, right back at it. Somebody's gonna say yes.
Exactly, and that's because this is your experience, right? You've done
Yeah,
this long enough where you know that every time that you get some dirt thrown in your face, that if you
yeah,
keep trudging through and you keep moving forward and just doing it, you're gonna hit that success. And for a lot of agents, they don't have that experience yet. They just don't know that
yeah,
they don't have the confidence, they don't have the experience, and they're just a little unsure. And if I could give them one assurance, it's just focus on the things that that work, that your
yeah.
mentors or your coaches or that you're already using that works. Stay consistent with it, but don't let those no's, like you said, man, don't let those no's get you down, because if they do, then you stop doing what works.
1000%. Awesome. Cool. All right. So we will head into now, like, you rebuilt it back in Florida. I do want to touch on actually, because we're at this point. So you at one point had a TikTok and still have a TikTok with like what, 1 million likes? Is that what it is? How
Oh,
did you,
that's a great question. I don't know what the exact numbers is. Hold on, let me look. I
yeah,
think
I'm curious to know like how you grew that or what you did to grow it. Like, but also just the reach it's had, because I know that was something we had talked about when we were first joining over.
Yeah, no, the TikTok thing is really amazing. We're at 1.1 million likes
That's
and
insane.
118 million views.
Yeah. That's
So the TikTok thing was really cool because I have a passion for going when I was younger, doing dirt bikes, motocross, all of that. I also really loved photography. I loved photography. Back then, they didn't have videography and that kind of stuff unless you had like a massive camera that sat on your shoulder. But as a kid
yeah.
growing up, photography was really cool. And as I think around 14, 15, I think my parents bought me like a little, like a DSLR camera. I'm sure a lot of you guys know what those are, but it's kind of like a mid grade camera, and I got really into that. And I saw the social media thing really expanding, right? Obviously, everyone knows Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, all of those things. But you got to remember, in 2019, 2018, not everybody, and especially not realtors, were on the idea to creating your own reel about your house or creating some
Yeah.
content for advertising, and being a little bit more forward thinking, a little more tech advanced, more into the internet kind of stuff. I saw a huge marketable avenue with these different social media platforms. And how I went about that really was is I was trying to figure out what I wanted to make, right? Like everyone does when they first start their journey, is they sit down and they go, okay, how am I going to do this? And I simply went and I went to my partner Victoria, and I said, what is it that you would watch? Like, what would you actually enjoy watching if you were swiping through here? Because you got to remember that the intention of what we're doing here is getting people to stop on social media.
Yeah.
It's not like a TV ad where people are going to sit through it no matter what because they got to watch, the football game at the end of the ad. That's not
Yeah.
how social media marketing works. It is by choice. So I looked into it and I said, well, I got to make entertainment here. I got to make stuff that's fun to watch, that people are going to actually watch the entire 30-minute or 30-second thing. And that's what I started doing is I, obviously I knew because of HGTV and Chris and Joanna Gaines and all of those amazing people
Heck
that
yeah.
people love homes. Like, they are obsessed. There's millions and millions of people that every single day voluntarily turn on HGTV and watch home tours and home videos and home stuff, right? And who's a better person to do home stuff than a realtor? As a professional that works in homes all day long,
Yeah.
why are we not going out and showcasing homes and showcasing all of this amazing
So
stuff? So
cool.
really that's what I did. And it was, what I did on TikTok was I found something that obviously worked. Which is how we do all things, right, guys? Is we find business that works, we find a system that brings in leads or converts into sales, or in this case, does the TikTok to get views and to get likes. So I found a system that works. I found a template that works, and then I started just being very consistent with that every day,
Yeah.
making 2 or 3 posts a day. But in addition to that, and this is the real secret, and this is with the next gen group, what we set up is you have to have engagement, right? So if you have a couple people that will engage with your content as soon as you put it up, the longevity and the productivity of that piece of content is huge. So imagine
Yeah.
you can get 5 or 6 comments on a video or on a reel or a piece of content, a house tour, and with 5 or 6 comments, you're able to guarantee you can get 2 or 3 thousand views. Now, if you made good content that was entertaining, that I always like to say, will your kid watch it? Will your wife watch it? Will your husband watch it? If your kid will watch it, you made good content, and that's really the truth. So, if you make a piece of content and you give it to your kid, and he's like, "Oh, that's fun. I like the music," and he jings, does a little dance with it, you got a good piece of content. And if you can get that in front of 6 or 7 thousand or 2,000 people, really, you can get that in front of a few thousand people. They start commenting on it and they start
I
liking
love
it, right?
that.
And that's
Yeah.
how we've gotten to over 1 million likes. Is that you have to build out engagement. So we really focused on building content that was designed to engage people. And since then, it's just been, it's going crazy. We still do it. I did slow down on it a little bit after COVID, mainly because our market in South Florida was transitioning from an upward trending market to a downward trending market. 2024, the average sales price in Southwest Florida went down by like 32% or 35%. So it's been a challenging market down there. So I didn't necessarily want to be getting buyer leads. And we've switched our lead gen systems over to fully, listing and seller side since then. But the TikTok stuff, if you are in a market that is a traditional market or you're just in a plateaued market, you need to be doing TikTok, you need to be doing Instagram, you have to be doing
Yeah.
Facebook. And then the biggest one, you guys, and this is, you can even make good money on this, is YouTube. You have to be on YouTube Shorts. And, with our system, you can combine all of that. You can take one piece of content, post it, and it posts to all of them because it saves you so much time not having to, post on one site and then the next and the next. Post it once, goes to all of them, and you can get all the views.
Yep. I like that. If your kid likes it, like, then it's gonna hit, because that's like pretty much how it goes. Like, I'm sure if I showed Daniel like these podcast clips, he'd like, dude, I don't want to watch it. But like if I'm over there dancing, he'd probably be like, all right, sweet. So I know what I need to do.
And
I gotta
listen,
dance
man, the
during.
cool part is that when you get into groups, so like, for example, I've had some videos that go off to do like 8 million views, 6 million views, like crazy
Insane.
numbers, right?
Yeah.
And you'll get a group of kids that all go to the same high school. It's so funny. Or middle school. Like, you'll get little kids that are like, this
Yeah.
house looks like X, Y, and Z, and their friends all start commenting on it because they're all, that algorithm
Shares
shares
it out
among
and stuff like that.
exactly. And
Yeah.
you'll be like, why in the heck is a school in Missouri with a whole bunch of 8th graders commenting on my home video in Florida when it's
Yeah.
completely irrelevant? Because the song is good, because the content is good, because it's fast paced. There's some zoomies, there's some, and you get your jiving, you're having fun, and then
Yeah.
what's the next thing you do? You look in the comments, and then someone says something, and then you got to tell them what you think, because hey. So then they get these guys going back and forth,
Yeah.
and it's fun to
Drives it
see,
from
and
there.
it's an incredible. It's incredible being on the creator side, because in social media you have your creators, right, and you have your consumers, and they're completely different. People that make content for social media, they don't watch social media, man. It's not
Yeah.
fun. It's really actually
Yeah.
kind of, it gets on your nerves because you can see the angles, you can see the hooks, you can
Yeah.
see everything
You know
that
the
everyone's
differences and
doing.
stuff.
But everyone that consumes it, like the AI stuff, there's all these AI reels and all this AI stuff. They
Yeah.
don't even mind if it's not even real. A lot of people will consume fake content. They don't care. They just enjoy the content.
Yeah, I think we're gonna go towards it goes back to the AI thing, and then what you just said, which growing a TikTok like that is absolutely insane. But I think we're gonna go away from, like, just as a society, the content side of things and the phone calls and text messages. Like, I have a feeling we're gonna like completely just 180. There's a lot more people that are doing stuff in person. I have had multiple buddies who have gotten rid of smartphones, gotten dumb phones that it's like only can call or something like that. So we tend to, same way real estate works in cycles as a society, we tend to like kind of
Exactly.
repeat
Yep.
stuff. And I just have a feeling like because there's so much like AI and nothing's real and everybody just sits there and stares at content, like it's starting to become cool again to get outside and experience life. So it's funny how it always works. Um, Perfect. As we start to wrap this up, so what are you doing now? What does the future hold for you as you kind of head into a new state, a new area, and like what are kind of your goals going into it?
So we are at a point now. This is a super exciting time for me, obviously, because I can kind of reinvent the business and everything that I'm training people on and using. We're able to start implementing that up here. So this is really kind of like a new dawn, kind of new chapter. Um,
Sweet.
as you kind of alluded there, we just recently part time moved up to Raleigh, North Carolina, the Research Triangle area here. And it's been incredible. It's really been fantastic because, like you just said, getting out. There's a lot more to do in terms of hiking and biking and being in
Yeah.
nature a little bit more. In South Florida, it's truly paradise. Like I said at the start of this podcast, it is. It's probably the nicest or one of the nicest places I've ever been. Believe it or not, we were actually in Tahiti one year, and when you're on vacation, you ran into other people that are on vacation, and we got into a van with them because they were like a shuttle van, and they were like, "Oh, we're from Europe, blah blah blah." And he said, "Oh, what's the best place you've ever been to in your lives?" And they said, "Southwest Florida." And I said, "No way, we live in Southwest Florida."
That's
but
too funny.
being up here in North Carolina, it's you don't have the beaches, you don't have the 24/7 sun, you don't have that
Yeah.
incredible weather. But what you have instead is you have beautiful forest, some incredible, like we live right on a what they call a greenway which is a big path that goes for I think it's almost 100 miles, goes all the way up and down the city, connects everything. Really just incredible stuff doing outside. So we are growing the business, or I'm growing really from the ground up organically, just like we train everyone on. We're using the same techniques that work, but we're also really making sure to focus on our priorities. And my priorities right now are definitely the family, right?
Yeah.
Victoria, my partner's number one always. Getting out, doing stuff, and enjoying life, because that is what, when you set up the right foundation, you can do. You're
Yeah.
not having to be stuck doing the things that you don't want to do. So, we're planning on doing a Japanese vacation this year. That's something that we really want to
Nice.
do. So going to Japan, um,
Yeah.
but also, really focus in and getting our new brand going up here, and getting a small team moving up here is going to be the next kind of 3 or 4 months is what we're going to focus on, with most of the days. But at the same time, we just had a couple new agents join us in different areas. And one of them already has a new home under contract. So they joined us here like 3 or 4 days ago, and they already have a deal under contract, which is just incredible that you can join and
Yeah.
already have stuff moving like that. But that's also my primary focus. Like I said, I want to be the head coach. I want you guys. Like Eric. I want you to be Michael, man. I want you to go out there and win the rings and do all of that.
Yeah.
And if I can help you guys grow to be bigger than I've ever been, right? So even my biggest successes have been wonderful, and I'm very thankful for them. But I want to have you guys doing more than that year after year. So that's really where the next gen group and our whole kind of our focus is on helping people that are like yourselves, that want to go and go bigger and get bigger and make more money, to improve their incomes, generate more revenues, and really be able to set them up with a foundation that I have found that works and allows you to go on vacations, to allow you to go to Japan or go to Tahiti or go to Guatemala and Belize or whatever it may be. Set up a
Yeah.
foundation so you can do that stuff. So that's this next chapter for me is going to be really exciting. It's going to be kind of a test, and really going to show that what we do works no matter where you are in Florida or Ohio or in Georgia and Texas, Tennessee, Virginia, doesn't matter. Wherever you are, this works. But at the same time, my focus is always going to be on finding other people that have open minds, that are wanting to grow and want to build and want to implement the next gen system. So those are my big challenges for the next 6 months, man. Is I got to find
Yeah.
some new people that want to keep implementing and want to grow, and then I'm excited to get this going so we can do. On average, we do about 10 million a year in our local market per agent. So I'm hoping to do
Yeah.
around 10 million annually here in the Raleigh area.
Sweet. Well, I'm super excited to see it. I know the move, like it challenged us when we moved, but in like the best way possible. I know it'll do the same for you. So I'm super stoked. We will start to wrap it up. I will finish it with just we are super thankful for you. All of your shout outs have been much deserved in this podcast. So it was a leap of faith for us to join somebody at EXP that randomly messaged us on Facebook, but ended up becoming friends, very good friends. The team we have, what we do, our business, us being in Florida, the people we have underneath us, our downline, our mentees, the success we've had, none of it's possible without you. So
Oh,
I
thanks,
know a
man.
lot of people are going to get this. Yeah, a lot of people are going to listen to this and they're going to get a ton of amazing information because you're always looking to help others. You're always an open book. So we appreciate it. I thought this was absolutely awesome, chock full of amazing stuff. So
Yeah, man. No, I appreciate it, and thanks for inviting me again. And if
yeah,
anybody watches this and you have any questions, just reach out to me. Jump
yeah,
on, shoot me a text message, or go on to Facebook, send me a message on Facebook. I would love to chat with you. I am here for you guys. Like I said, that's one of my primary focuses. I want to help people do more, grow bigger, be better, and really, the coolest part is that what I have found, like you just said, man, is that all this would be possible. The legacy that we
yeah.
can build here is something that I'm so excited for it. I'm ready, man. I'm ready for not
Same here,
just
man.
26 and 27 and 28, but 35 and 2040 and 2050. I'm excited to see where it goes.
Same here. I appreciate you as always, man.
All right, buddy. Have a great one. We'll see you soon.